Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast where we talk with people from all walks of the publishing industry. I'm Christie Stratos, author of the Dark Victoriana collection. That's historical suspense. Today, we're going to be reading from my historical fantasy. And my awesome co-host, Richard H. Stevens, he is an epic fantasy author of the series Soulforge Universe, Soulforge Saga, and more. Lurking for Legends is a live interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions tonight for us, or simply make comments on our dramatic reading. I hope you guys will enjoy this. It's a lot of fun. So tonight we're going to do something special, as you kind of already heard, a live reading of Richard's latest epic fantasy release, Keeper of the Jewel. That's going to come first. And then that will be followed by my Kindle Vella historical fantasy, Grimoire Society of Dark Acts. And I just released episode 8 on that. So if you want to check that out, be sure to do it. And then we will finally do another scene from Keeper of the Jewel. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to read all of this. We have a great time with it.
That's for sure. And so is the stuff that we're reading today, is that from, you won an award this week, or you're like #1 in a Vella category. Was that from this same story?
Top fave. Yeah, it's top faved, which people get, I believe readers get once a week the opportunity to award their crown to somebody. So this was that was pretty exciting for me. I haven't had that happen before, so to have that crown was really something.
Yeah, congratulations. Keep it up. Keep it going. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
So yeah,
already. Yeah, I like to.
No, go ahead. Sorry. That's it.
I was just gonna say I try to release these once a week.
Stilted. Yeah,
there's always a delay. So yeah, I try to release these about once a week, except when life happens. So I'm back to once a week now. So
awesome.
So that's what my schedule is.
So I noticed that just before we start our reading, we're going to be doing Keeper of the Jewel first. That you're not wearing a crown. You got to be wearing 2 crowns actually, because you're going to be playing the Queen of the Elves and the Princess of the Elves. So you got some big shoes to fill there.
I need to buy a crown. I wish I had a crown. If I did, I'd be wearing it right now. It would be so much fun. I only have a Victorian type hat. I don't think that'll suit.
No, but if we do one of your Victorian readings, it'll probably be good for that. So
that's true. That's true. Yeah, big shoes to fill for sure. I'm excited.
So just so everyone knows that this is a very informal reading. And if you guys want to chime in the comments, please do so. We don't mind stopping and answering questions or answering the questions at the end of each reading. So like Christy said, we're going to read an excerpt from Keeper of the Jewel, and then we're going to read 3 excerpts from your Grimoire Society, and then we're going to read another excerpt from Keeper of the Jewel. So, but by all means, please don't be afraid to comment, and even if you're just letting us know how you're doing, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. We're doing a fantasy reading sandwich here. We'll do epic, and then historical, and then epic.
All right, so just to get ready, I am going to be playing Hamus. That's the only character that I'm playing, and the narrator. And Hamus is the king of the elves, so I need to be in uniform here. So
whoa!
I actually should have brought the sword in. I had a sword, yeah. I should have brought my sword, but I never thought about it till right now. So anyway, so I got my chainmail on, and it's very hot in here. Especially when I had that hoodie on. I'm thinking, come on, hurry up.
Oh, you look fantastic. That's
what I wear when I do book shows. If I'm doing fantasy book shows or medieval fairs or whatever.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Margaret Pinard, she's a fellow historical fiction writer. She had asked, are you guys going to do costumes? And I had said no, and now it's a lie. That is awesome.
Yeah, she's going to call you out on that. Yeah. We're going to get you in actually you're doing the Grimoire, so we'll have to get you in some kind of fantasy stuff next time. But
sometime, you know what? I have a couple of things that maybe next time I will wear. That is really, really cool though. That armor is awesome.
Hello, Kevin from Anchorage, Alaska. That's awesome. I wish I was in Anchorage, Alaska, because it's probably a lot cooler up there right now, and I'm in this armor and I'm starting to sweat. So if I start dripping on my screen, I apologize. And thank you, Anita.
It looks great.
Anita's striking armor. Okay, so the cast of characters in my 2 excerpts, there's only going to be 3 characters. Oh, I guess there's a couple little minor characters come and go, but the main characters are KY. She's the Queen of the Elves, and then her daughter, Oderling Wise, and she's a spoiled know-it-all. And there's a narrator, which would be myself, and then Hamas Wise, who is the king of the elves. And in my elven kingdoms, the queen is the top sovereign. So it always goes to the top, the firstborn daughter, as opposed to being the firstborn son. So Kay Wise is actually the ruler of South March. And the first reading is going to be from chapter Dragonborn. And in this chapter, the Queen of the Elves, Kay Wise, has just returned from an ill-advised journey to an old tower that is rumored to be haunted by a long-dead warlock. While there, she managed to communicate with the White Witch, who informed her that her daughter's life was in imminent peril. So that's where we're going to start. And how is my sound? I'm not used to wearing this thing. So am I echoey? Am I overbearing?
No, it sounds good. Nice and clear. Nice and clear.
Good. Yeah, I'm not used to wearing this stuff. I got such a fat head, it's hard to find something to fit on there.
No, it sounds good.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm all set.
All right, I'm just going to take a drink here. I think I'm dry already.
I know, right? That happens anytime I know I'm going to read. That's it. My throat is like parched immediately.
Yeah, I get nervous for some reason, even though I do this all the time, but I'll be fine once I get going. Okay, so this is from the chapter Dragonborn. And Orlithia is the town where the palace, Borg Palace, is placed. So, Orlithia was resplendent under the midday sun as a skiff bumped into its berth on the western flank of the palace. Just as she knew he would be, Hamas stood with many of the house guard, her husband looking none too pleased. Several vessels tied off around them. The home guard that had found Kay halfway through the night at the top of Grimoire's tower appeared tired. Upon hearing of his wife's folly at last night's supper, the king had dispatched the most capable of the home guard to see to her safety. Kay was certain Hamas had wanted nothing more than to accompany them, but his presence would have been a hindrance and a distraction to those younger and more fleet of foot. Once she won free of his ministrations and lectures, she promised herself that she must see to the release of the guard who had delivered her message last night, for Hamas was sure to have had him locked up for not reporting to him earlier. A warmth drove away the midday chill. Her dear husband meant well. He took her safety seriously. She smiled up at his handsome face, the worry lines etched there, not lost on her. He appeared on the verge of a public display of outrage, but seeing her grim expression, held back and offered a hand to assist her onto the sturdy pier. Come on, let's get you out of the cold. Hamas's tone brooked no argument. He searched out the nearest home guard on the dock. You there! See that food and hot water await the Queen's arrival in the royal chambers. A hand on the small of her back, Hamas urged her toward the palace gates, issuing further orders as he went. Kay paused to instruct a female guard standing at attention at the foot of the dock.
Fetch the princess to our chambers.
The guard dipped her head, waited until they had passed her position, and scurried through a smaller door into a servant's passageway. Noble elves approached as they strode with purpose along a meandering pathway throughout the lush gardens on the inside of the gates, but stopped and left them alone at a subtle shake of the king's head. You know I hate it when you do that. Hamas kept his voice low. What could possibly make you visit Grimwatch at night, alone?
Trust me, I didn't make the decision lightly.
He stopped walking, genuine concern on his face. Hamas was nobody's fool. He knew something grave must have occurred to make her do what she had. His green eyes darkened. I should suspect not. You're the Queen of South March. There are people you could have appointed to do whatever it was you felt needed to be done. Not to mention people you should have taken with you. Kay guided him off the pathway and sat him down on a curved stone bench overlooking a shallow pond, two swans gliding across its glassy surface. She twisted on the bench to face him, unsure how much she wished to reveal. The last thing she wanted was to worry him further. She grabbed his hands.
You know that when I go to Grimwatch, I do so to consult with the essence of nature. If I were to take someone with me, my chance of achieving a good rapport would be compromised.
Compromised or not, it's your life we're talking about. Hamas shook his head and looked away, visibly upset. She knew he wanted nothing more than to remind her what had happened to their son all those years ago on Grimoire Island, how Ordal's desire to take up his mother's place and become attuned with nature had ultimately led to his death. Though they never found out the real reason behind what had happened that stormy night, they assumed it had to have something to do with his insistence on visiting the mysterious island. Grimwatch Tower was possessed of earth magic, but that didn't mean summoning such forces could be done with impunity. Kay and Hamas had both known Ordal was more than a rogue magic user. Though he had proven himself as someone to be reckoned with at an early age, his parents suspected that his overzealous ambition to become the greatest practitioner of nature in the history of South March had a direct correlation with his untimely death. Kay sighed. Hamas deserved to know the truth. On a matter this important, holding back to spare him the worry wouldn't be fair. Odling was his pride and joy. He would never recover if something happened to his little sprite. She put a hand on his thigh.
My sweet, you know I wouldn't have gone if I didn't believe it was important.
He turned on her, about to protest, but she put a finger on his lips.
You must listen for a change, O mighty king. Once you hear what I have to say, you'll be glad I did what I did. Trust me.
He swallowed, waiting for her to continue.
Do you remember what the dragon witch said to my parents that day she disappeared?
Hamas tilted his head, looking skyward as he searched his memory. His eyes darted back to hold her gaze. Yes, but?
She mentioned a being so sinister that should it ever find the outlet it sought, the world as we know it would be forever scarred.
Hamas's dark look transformed into one of startled revelation, knowing that Kay had unearthed something they had both hoped would never come to pass.
Aye, Risa never did name that creature, but she feared it had come to our side of the, is it Naiad?
Yes, Naiad, yeah.
Naiad, in search of something.
Kay raised her eyebrows and nodded.
This is going to sound silly at first, but please hear me out. Yesterday morning, I passed beneath the palace like I often do on my way to the eastern side. While in the servants' passage, I sensed an evil presence. Fortunately, it left me alone, but something about it instilled in me an immediate fear for Oderling. Anyway, I went straight away to her chambers. Thankfully, she was okay.
Hamas's frown deepened with what she knew was skepticism.
Oh, I knew that'd be your reaction. That's why I didn't bother you with it. Even I thought it was silly when I took time to consider it. And yet, I know I hadn't imagined the vileness beneath the palace. Whatever was down there instilled in me a sudden fear for our daughter.
You're jumping to conclusions, Kay. Whatever it was, I'm sure there's a logical explanation. A troll, perhaps. A creature from the earth that lost its way in the underground warrens. You likely scared it more than it scared you. She gave him a patient smile.
That's what I thought too. Hoped, in fact. But deep down, I knew it was something more. Ensuring Odeling's safety was worth the risk of Grimwatch.
And your safety doesn't mean anything?
Of course it does, but I had to know. Call it mother's intuition or whatever you like. There's more to my brush with whatever I encountered in the passageway than either of us cares to admit.
Well, what's done is done. I'm almost afraid to ask what you discovered on that vile island.
That's the weirdest part of the whole thing. Usually when I connect with nature, I talk, so to speak, with the forces involved. But this time it was different.
How so?
You've seen me speak with the fairies.
Hamas nodded.
Well, this time I was met by a different type of fairy creature, one I never expected to meet.
She took a quick breath and said,
The queen of the fae, if I have the right of it. She brought with her the essence of Nixa.
Your mother? Kate dipped her chin.
Aye, though she never actually spoke. Her essence insinuated that she had enlisted the aid of the fairy queen to spirit a warning to us, to me specifically.
She paused, still not sure she had interpreted the message properly. Hamas's incredulous look urged her on.
Do you remember the dragon witch informing us that the only way forward was dependent upon our harmony with dragonkind?
Hamas swallowed and nodded ever so slightly. The spirit that I encountered beneath... Oh, sorry, this is actually your line. My apologies, I didn't highlight it for you.
Oh, I got it. The spirit that I encountered beneath the palace is searching for someone specific.
Hamas stared hard. Kay struggled to keep her eyes from watering.
I can't act that. There's more. Harmony with the dragons can only be brought about through someone special. one who possesses the ability to wield both elf magic and dragon magic.
Amos's complexion noticeably paled in front of her.
If I'm to trust the vision, and there's no reason I shouldn't, the creature the dragon which had warned us about searches for this person. Has found her, in fact.
Amos appeared as if he were about to faint. Kate searched their immediate vicinity to make sure they weren't being watched or overheard. She lowered her voice.
If what the essence bespoke is true, the creature is here below the palace. It's after someone it considers dragonborn.
She swallowed, her voice dropping to a whisper.
It seeks Odling.
That is the end of that reading. Thank you, Kay. And
That's not good.
You were just Kay that time, yeah.
That's not good for Odling. Odling's in trouble.
Yes, it does not bode well for Odling for sure. No, that was awesome. So I'm just going to catch up on some of the comments here. Striking armor, 48 degrees and high for the day. Well, that's a little bit cooler than what we had. I'm not sure what it was like down where you are. Christie.
Where I am, it's still too warm. So we're waiting for fall. Yeah. The warmth goes on.
You must have typed in for me. Thanks for coming, everyone.
I did.
Wanda said we're awesome. Wanda's too kind.
You're so sweet, Wanda. We have such a good time with this. It's so much fun. Yeah,
it is a lot of fun. And again, like I do these all the time on Friday nights or Thursday nights, and I invite any author, if you want to ever do a live read with me, just let me know and we'll do it on Facebook, apart from Lurking for Legends. So just look me up and message me and we'll do it together. It's a lot of fun.
Don't be nervous. It's really fun.
It is. You know, it's really low key. You can't take yourself seriously. It's just a lot of fun and it's not a big deal. So I'll let you take this next part, Christie. This is your introduction into what we're going to read from your episodes.
So we are going to read Grimoire Society of Dark Acts, which is my Kindle novella, historical fantasy. It takes place in the Victorian era. And you're not going to do another change. Are you changing into a Victorian suit?
You know what? I don't have anything like that, but I figured I would do something. So you carry on and I will be with you in a second.
Okay. So anyway, this is historical fantasy. It's my first historical fantasy that I've written, and I'm having such a great time writing it. The 8th episode has just released on Kindle novella. So you're going to hear episodes 1 to 3. So we're going to do a good bit of reading on this, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to hear right from the beginning. So I don't really have to give too much explanation, except, to enjoy what you hear. And if you like it, head over. Maybe I should get the link for you guys. You could head over to Amazon and check out Grimoire Society of Dark Acts. I'm just going to grab that link. And you get your first, if you're not like a Kindle Vella person yet, if you're not on Kindle Vella at the moment, your first 200 tokens are free. And that is a lot of reading. So, feel free to go over there and grab your free tokens and read my stuff for free. You will get a long, long way. I don't even think you'll be able to use them all on my stuff. I don't think you'll even need all of it. So, so I think let's go ahead. As we do with all our live reads, I'm going to be the narrator, even though the narrator is a male. His name is Humphrey Bollington, as you'll hear soon. So I guess we will just get started. And stay tuned because Richard is going to do his female voices, and they are some of my favorites. So don't leave.
I can't do female voices like McKillican. But
no,
but I'm not even going to try to do a female. The one lady you marked as old, and I think it's coming from a frame of reference because to me it was 40 years old as young actually. But
in the Victorian era, it's not so.
Yes. Okay. All right. I will try to put a bit of a lilt to her voice a bit.
Now it's nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Wanda. I'm so glad. Yeah, I will be coming out with number 9 soon. Ooh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Okay, so here we go. Episode 1 is called A Secret Excitement. Boston, 1850. Jeremy B. Wilmington, the Grimoire Society of Dark Acts. Well, this was an unusual calling card. Grimoire. Wasn't that to do with magic? And dark acts. What did that mean? Perhaps to do with mourning? Humphrey Bollington turned over the stark white card in his hand. There were certainly no frills on it, no attractive decorations to draw the eye. But wait, what was that? In the tiniest print he was surprised he could even read, it said 129 B Street, Boston. Not too far from where he stood now. He chuckled to himself. What a very silly thing to think one could do. Some kind of magic? What was Grimoire in French? Incantations, or perhaps a book of magic? Perhaps it was a magician who performed at parties. Strange to put a personal address instead of a business one. Humphrey happened to know that 129 Beacon Street was a home, not a place of business. What a strange thing to come across. His hand hovered over the ground, about to flick the card away, back to the filthy gutter next to which he'd found it. Well, what was the harm in taking it? Hadn't he just spent all that time complaining at the gentleman's club about how dull and dreary his life had become? Perhaps there was some interest in this card. After all, how often did one find something like this? Tucking it away in his inner jacket pocket, Humphrey felt as though he knew something no one else did, and that alone was a nice change of pace for a bored druggist. And there's a scene break.
You're welcome, Mrs. Glover. Have a nice day.
Humphrey watched her leave, her green skirts swishing as she walked out the door of the pharmacy.
Shouldn't be wearing that arsenic in the dye.
He sighed heavily, leaning against the wooden counter and gazing around the store. It was so hard knowing so much about what was good and not good for others, and being unable to say so, at least to any degree of influence. Humphrey wasn't a doctor, only a druggist who could compound his own drugs and sell pre-made ones on his shelves. But sometimes he wished it would be nice if people really listened to him, if his customers thought of him as more of an expert than a person to dole out medications prescribed to them by real experts.
What a terribly boring trade this is. No wonder I've never been married. I suppose I can see it from the lady's side. What would our conversation be about? Nothing as exciting as lawyers or even judges or doctors. Mr. Bollington!
A man stood in front of the counter, waiting for his attention.
Oh, yes, sir. What can I do for you?
A smile spread over the man's face.
I'd know that look of longing anywhere. The boredom of middle age, eh?
Humphrey's eyebrows raised. Well, that was rather forward. Then again, it was very true. He used to find everything much more interesting than he did now. But that was while he was still...
I know, because I feel the same way.
The man continued.
It's just the way it goes, isn't it? Luckily, my wife always has something or other to entertain me with. A party or a dinner or some story she picked up from a friend. They are necessary to keep one interested among all the stagnation of life, wouldn't you say?
What an appalling idea. Humphrey frowned, annoyed that he didn't have a wife to entertain him.
Surely that's true, sir, but I wouldn't know. I'm a bachelor at the moment myself.
At the moment always made it sound like he'd been married before. That was how he preferred it. Once he had made up an entire story about a wife he never had and the death she never experienced. Really anything to sound as if he weren't 40 going on undesirable. Oh, that should be yours. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, well.
It should be green.
Green. Oh, well, that's how it goes with all those plagues and fevers going around all the time nowadays. Isn't it horrid?
Humphrey sighed audibly, but plastered a weary smile across his face.
Yes, of course. Very tiring, all that. Now, is there anything at all I can help you with? Do you have a plague by chance?
Although meant as a joke, Humphrey also hoped a little that this clearly healthy man had something terribly wrong with him. Something Humphrey could treat and save his life and land him in the papers as the most celebrated druggist of all.
Oh, just a slight wheeze, Mr. Bollington. Just a wheeze.
Humphrey's lips spread into a straight line at the tiresome news of nothing being very wrong.
A wheeze? Originating in the lungs. A wheeze would be any number of things. Have you seen a doctor? And just next time you come into the store, please don't bring your cat with you. We try to keep it.
She's a good actress.
Oh, no, certainly not. I haven't seen a doctor since my Am I? Yeah, I'm ahead of my. No, I'm not. Oh no, certainly not. I haven't seen a doctor since my cousin's hospital stay. He went in to have a tumor removed, developed gangrene at the site of the wound, and they gave him too much chloroform before performing surgery. Well, you can imagine the state of his wife at his funeral. My goodness, you never heard such a racket as that woman made. I told her, Ada, I said, you simply must understand.
Humphrey looked down at his hands. He wasn't that old, and many women married older men anyway, ones who were established with a good solid business and a home for them to occupy. Without any prospects, though, perhaps he'd better start looking for something to keep life interesting outside of a woman. Perhaps that card he'd found in the street the other day.
I'm sure you agree.
The man said, his blue eyes boring into Humphrey.
Hospitals are simply rife with gangrene. You're right, they are.
Humphrey said.
Now, about that wheeze. How about a small package of Mrs. Jervis's cold candy? I've heard it's quite good and tasty too. Only 12.5 cents.
He walked around the counter and picked it up from a shelf not too far away, then handed it to the man before making it back behind the counter again. Yes, that card. He'd go to the address. After all, he could always leave if he didn't like this Grimoire society. He could always just leave. That's the end of episode 1. Now we are on to episode 2. And by the way, all of the medications and things like that mentioned are real. I have found them. They exist. They are from Victorian era newspaper advertisements that I found. And this isn't just like looking them up on Google. This is literal Victorian newspapers that I searched through. So the things you hear are real and the prices I give them are also real. 12.5 cents. Almost nothing. Well, to us today anyway. Yes, they did have half cents too. Anita says the cat wanted to do the wheeze sound effects.
Oh, yes. Yes, I certainly did.
That's great. Perfect. So we will be moving on to episode 2, which is called Shadows of the Abyss. And we start with Humphrey.
All right. Dr. Keeler's pills. I'm a soccer fan. Sorry, liver. Dr. Keeler's liver pills should do it. On the shelf at the desk. At the back.
Humphrey said.
I don't think I can get that on over my thing here.
But it's a great idea.
Jittery old guy here. and that'll help me calm my nerves. I can barely stand being out in public, but my job depends on it. You sure? Don't worry, Senator. They'll work. I've seen their ad many times in the paper. They're part of the Dr. Keeler's Family Medicines brand. Surely you've heard of them. Yes, I have.
The jittery, formally dressed man headed to the back of the pharmacy, and Humphrey watched his hat bob down the aisle. It felt as if he were walking as slowly as possible. Humphrey wanted to close up shop and get out of there before it got dark. His new adventure to the Grimoire Society of Dark Acts awaited. He laughed to himself about the name. Truly strange. Putting a hand on the counter, Humphrey drummed his fingers. His customers couldn't possibly miss the bottle with the pink type on the label. Really now, this man seemed to have a sense for driving Humphrey's impatience to madness.
Would you like some help, sir?
If Humphrey couldn't get him out soon enough, he might have another customer, and that was the last thing he wanted. He'd probably get one of those shelf wanderers who doesn't seem to know what they're even at a druggist's for.
I found it now,
said the man's quiet voice. His hat bounced up and down as he made the journey back up the aisle. Humphrey heaved a deep sigh from his lungs, raised his eyebrows, and stared out the front door's window.
No more people, please. I can't take it.
The senator plopped the slim glass vial of pills in front of Humphrey with a hard sound.
This had better work.
He took a handkerchief from his pocket and dabbed his forehead, and with the other hand, he put exact payment on the counter.
I'll let you know.
He nodded and left with his remedy.
Dropping coins on a flat surface should be considered a crime of annoyance.
Humphrey used one hand to slide all the coins off the counter and the other to catch them, then put them in the till. He hurried around the counter and turned the sign on the front door to closed. Finally, some time for excitement, or at least a good laugh. And then we have a section break. Richard, you are fantastic, can I just say? Such a good job.
You're doing good. I wanted to throw you off a little bit. I don't want to throw you totally off your reading.
It's really good.
129. 129.
Humphrey murmured to himself as he walked down Beacon Street.
Ah, yes.
Well, this city house looked no different from any other brownstone. Tall and slim, indistinguishable. Nothing special on the door either. Not even glass at the top of it. Humphrey checked the business card again. He was definitely right, even if the print was tiny. Should he knock? Suddenly, shyness overcame him. On the way over, he'd been dead set on simply walking in, as if the door would be open and welcoming. But of course it wasn't. And there was no signage inviting newcomers inside. Smoke billowed from the chimney, so someone was certainly at home. Filling his lungs with damp air, it had rained quite a lot earlier, and the streets and sidewalks were generously puddled. Humphrey strode up the short flight of stairs to the door with false confidence, his insides quivering with nervousness and uncertainty. What gave him the right to do this? To ask to walk into a place where people lived and he didn't. And he also didn't know any of them? A business card accidentally dropped near the gutter? Humphrey paused, still doubtful of whether he should attempt entrance. The wooden door's knocker was completely plain, just an iron circle against the same kind of simple backplate.
Now or never.
Before he could give himself another excuse, Humphrey reached out and knocked on the door instead of using the knocker. Annoyed with himself, after all, that was stupid, he almost tried the knocker but stopped himself. Actually, what he'd found was a business card, not a calling card. So he didn't really need to knock if this was a business in his city home structure. Humphrey tried the doorknob. It turned easily, but the door was stuck, perhaps because of the humidity. Looking up and down the street first and seeing that nobody really cared what he was doing, Humphrey tried using his shoulder gently against the door. It wouldn't budge. Glancing again around the street and finding passersby still oblivious, he drove his shoulder hard against the door and it gave way. He opened the door as little as possible to fit his slight potbelly through. If he was going to keep up this kind of behavior, he'd need to lose a few pounds to slip through unwelcoming doors more easily. He closed the door behind him and startled at the sight around him. Bright red and black damask wallpaper lined the hall, almost screaming off the walls. It was such a bright red. He'd never seen anything like it in all his life. The staircase down the hall was made of dark wood that seemed to host its own shadows of beings not there. The floor's wood was so dark, it almost looked as if Humphrey was walking into a bottomless abyss. But that abyss pulled him forward with an irresistible force. Humphrey stepped onto the dark floors and walked down the hallway slowly, feeling a numbness creep over his brain. He could do nothing to resist it. His limbs acted of their own accord while his mind remained blank, except for its uncontrollable repetition of the phrase whispered by an invisible force, "They await." The first parlor room's door was partially open, but there was no light coming from it. Humphrey moved on, surprised at his decision to skip it dulled. From the hallway, as he approached the second parlor room's door, he could already see a bright red light coming from under the door. Humphrey tried to rethink his decision to enter the house without permission, but the numbness enveloping his brain increased. He had no choice but to continue forward. He passed a mirror on the left wall, but was unable to turn his head or his eyes to see himself and whatever drove him onward. The bright red light drew closer as his legs brought him right up to the door. This one wasn't ajar. His brain screamed to stop, sounding as if it were in a faraway room locked away. All the while, his hand flew to the highly decorated handle, pushed it down, and threw open the door. Humphrey's eyes widened. The same wallpaper from the hallway lined these walls, bright and overwhelming, the dark damask pattern even larger in here and seeming to dance as if it were an entity with a life of its own. Red candles 10 feet high melted, wax rolling down themselves. The drips closed in on, touching the gold candelabra, the flames licking at the shadowy white patterned ceiling. And in the center of it all, 5 people stood around an enormous raw crystal, the same red as the walls. It was wet with, Humphrey sniffed, the blood of their enemies. They await. All of the men and women spun toward him at once, eyes covered by masks, hands aiming sharpened daggers at him. Humphrey regained control of his brain just as the first dagger flew across the room at him. And that was episode 2. So we will be moving on to episode 3 now. Now you get to hear from Richard more. That was a big me episode.
No, that's okay.
I have an actual red damask wallpaper pattern that I used as the inspiration for that. I mean,
Nice.
I don't have like literal wallpaper, but it's a design that I have. And that's what I based it off of, actually. So
That's cool.
it was fun. Yeah, it was fun to write that. I always have damask wallpaper in all my Victorian books, no matter the genre.
And you have the big red stone that smells like blood?
I do not have that.
No. I'm just checking. I'm just checking. I thought maybe we might need to phone somebody.
Just in case. Cool. So now we are going to move into the 3rd episode, and it's called An Impossible Reality. So here we go. Are you ready, Richard?
I am.
Great. Humphrey's mouth dropped open as the knife pinned his coat to the door at his waist.
That could have killed me.
Some of his words were only a loud whisper.
Slow death it would have been, too.
The woman who spoke took something small from her dress pocket and put it on the table. The room immediately began to change. The 10-foot-high red candles went out and shrank down to normal size. 2 of the men lit and turned up oil lamps on either side of the room. The black pattern in the wallpaper shrank significantly and stood still, the bright red background changing to a calm blue. The raw crystal in the center of everything was the last thing to change, also shrinking until it was hand size and deceptively clear. It sat at an angle on the round table in the center of the room, looking dry and bloodless. Humphrey shook his head. All of this was impossible. He must have accidentally ingested some sort of drug, sniffed up one of his pharmaceutical compounds. Except he hadn't made any today. The people in the room removed the masks from their eyes. The woman who'd spoken to him hustled toward him, her young face frowning.
Give me my dagger back, you fool.
She stopped right in front of him and yanked the dagger free of the door and his jacket, her sweet perfume washing over him. She smelled like a garden full of blooming roses, a bizarre juxtaposition to her sharp personality. She turned to face her companions. That's you, I'm sorry.
Oh,
sorry.
This is the one you've been waiting for. Oh, this is the one you've been waiting for?
She walked back to their circle and faced him again. A particularly well-dressed, black-haired man raised his nose in the air.
Well, I thought he'd be one. I thought he'd be of some use to us.
He looked directly at Humphrey.
What took you so long? Boldington?
Humphrey simply blinked. Had he been the target of a bunch of thugs? The man snapped his fingers.
Boldington, wake up. You've entered a nightmare you can't escape due to your own curiosity.
The shortest of the men chuckled.
I knew you'd be right for us if you'd let it get the better of you. Now, prove me right.
Swallowing hard and trying to find his voice, let alone rediscover his pulse, Humphrey forced himself to speak.
What? Why?
He cleared his throat to attempt more than a whisper.
Why did you target me? What is it you want? Money? I live very plainly. I haven't got any amount you'd be interested in.
Tisking at him, the well-dressed man smirked.
Oh, you'll catch on.
The short man said in a very rough voice.
I doubt that very much, Carmichael. He's looking a bit worse for wear, you know. Well, I've watched him.
The snooty one said.
If he can snap out of his stupor, I think you'll find him quite right for us.
Humphrey looked down at his coat and took up the left waist in his hands. A clean cut straight through the front and back. Thank goodness he'd worn it unbuttoned. He put his fingers through the pair of holes, still shocked by them.
You choose a simpleton,
said a more mature woman whose salt and pepper hair was parted down the center and pulled harshly flat, the length of it brought to the nape of her neck.
The man can't even figure out a hole in his coat.
Another chuckle from the shorter man, who had a cauliflower ear on his right side. The final member of their crew, a red-headed man, simply watched Humphrey, totally silent. The young woman tilted her head at him.
Let's see. What do you think we're just doing? A seance?
Humphrey tried. It was the only thing he could think of to bring on terrifying results like this, accessing the dead and speaking to them. She gave him a knowing look, one that said she had something in mind.
A seance? Not quite. Let's see what you make of this.
She removed another small thing from her pocket and threw it at him. By some miracle, he caught it. Opening his hand to look at it, it flashed brightly at him before he could distinguish what it was. Right in front of Humphrey, he saw himself. He stumbled backward into the door, his mind unable to comprehend how this could be possible without a mirror.
Come now, old man. You've been looking for adventure. Now you found it. Get yourself together and find out what's what.
Humphrey simply gaped at himself. It spoke his own truth to him, but...
But, stop with all the buts. Your whole life has been made up of buts. Now's the time to take things into your own hands. You know I'm right. Now button up your coat and find out what's happening. Quickly.
The self in front of him disappeared abruptly, and the object in his hand flashed at him again. A moment later, Humphrey could finally distinguish it. A smooth purple stone with a carving in it.
What magic is this?
He asked, looking up at the young woman.
Now you're asking the right questions,
she said, a clever smile on her face. She held out her hand, and Humphrey threw back the stone. She caught it and pocketed it.
Welcome to the Grimoire Society of Dark Acts,
the well-dressed man said.
You've been brought here by sheer wonderment. Or boredom,
said the shorter man.
And the card you found was mine.
Humphrey removed it from his pocket.
But it says it belongs to Jeremy B. Wilmington, and your name is Carmichael, isn't it? I told you he'd catch on. The card says whatever it thinks will draw you in. Apparently that name is something you found intriguing. So, here you are.
True. The name had sounded wealthy. That was part of why Humphrey had thought dark acts wouldn't be so frightening as what he'd just seen. He looked down at the card and found it blank. Not one word remained.
He didn't even wonder why it was clean when he found it on the filthy ground,
the mature woman said.
I'm not convinced.
Carmichael held up a hand to silence them.
We'll leave it to Bollington to convince us all.
He walked up to Humphrey.
Show us something impressive.
Humphrey almost laughed aloud. Impressive? He was the opposite of that. Then again, some peculiar version of his own self had just told him to take things into his own hands. Perhaps he should try to say or do something more interesting than he usually would. Normally, he would wait for one of them to tell him what to do. He could try to do the opposite, but the only thing he could do was the one thing he shouldn't. It was like a desperate itch that would feel so good to scratch. Should he?
Well, Bollington?
Carmichael asked.
We're waiting.
Humphrey looked from person to person, their impatience clear on their faces.
Well, it's like this.
He started blandly.
I used to gamble.
He waited for them to sling insults at him, but none came. He waited longer just in case they were in shock.
Come on now,
said the short man.
Nothing's off limits in here. Oh, what about gambling?
Asked the mature woman. Humphrey raised his eyebrows. This was a pleasant surprise. His past always marked him to be left out of most social circles, at least the ones people tended to want to be associated with. The dregs were always waiting with open arms. That was part of the danger.
I don't know if you'll believe me, but every time I threw the dice, something strange happened.
He paused, his palms sweaty at the idea of telling anyone. He'd sound such a fool if they didn't believe him.
Now's the time to take things into your own hands. A vision appeared to me, but I couldn't understand it. Right in the middle of gambling, I'd see strange symbols that made no sense to me. They reminded me of the symbol on that stone you threw at me.
The young woman smiled broadly.
Carmichael, you finally brought us our 6th.
The red-headed man who had stood back and simply observed before now finally came forward.
You'll need a lot of work,
he said in a thick Irish accent.
But if we can get you past initiation, it'll be worth it for us. What about for me?
Humphrey asked. Shouldn't they be trying to convince him to join them?
That depends on how you take it. No matter, it's too late to turn back. Your blood belongs to us now.
The red-headed man nodded at Humphrey's hand. The stone he'd handled a few minutes ago must have pricked him somehow. The door slammed shut of its own accord.
Best make this easy, else you might lose a whole lot more.
And that's it for episode 3. That was so much
awesome.
fun, and you did a great job. I love hearing characters read by other people.
Yes, I don't do accents very well, but just
I
try
don't
to make it a little bit different.
I thought it was good. You could tell that he was from somewhere else. That was good.
And that was great. I think we should just maybe stop it there. I see we're running at 8:46, so we'll just call the night now. Yeah, so that's fine. No worries. So, you want to let them know where to find that again?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes. So if you are interested in reading more episodes, and there are 8 episodes total, that was just the first 3, you can find it on Kindle Vella. And the link is currently in the chat. And like I said, you can get your first 200 tokens for free for Kindle Vella. So you can read all of what we just read you free. And then you'll get a whole bunch more episodes free as well if you choose to spend your tokens on my stories. So make sure if you do read it to hit like. It helps other readers to find it. And if you happen to want to crown it, go for it. That will make me very happy. And again, that just makes it much easier for more people to find it. So yeah, I didn't realize how late we were running, I guess.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
I'm just going to post my website. So if you want, and that's awesome. And so what does crown it mean?
That means, okay, so when you are on Kindle Vella, if you decide to pay for it, I think you get a little crown thing, which is called a top fave. And you can award that to your favorite story. So if you wanted to do that with mine, you absolutely can. And alternatively, even if you're not paying for it, you can just hit like, and that will also help people find my story.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's a lot of fun, Christy. So the reason we did this tonight is our guest unfortunately had something come up that he couldn't attend tonight. So hopefully we'll get Paul Coot on again in the future, probably in the new year. And we look forward to speaking to him. He's coming from across the Atlantic. So anyway, so we figured, well, we're just going to fill it in this way. And next week is actually, we're filling in again. We've had actually a couple of cancellations over. It's funny how they just seem to come at the same time. Next week's cancellation, let me just pull this up. So it's next week's, what's that?
Batches of cancellation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like 3 and just bang, bang, bang. And then, it happens. Life happens. So it's not a problem. But so next week is just Christy and I again. Thanks, Wanda.
Thanks,
Christy and
Wanda.
I again, and this is actually Wanda, because it's neat that you just chimed in there, because this is actually your idea. Where we'd missed a week at the middle of the summer. Someone had canceled on us, and so we just took a week off. And you were suggesting that Christy and I answer questions on the topic of writing, I guess, in general. So next week, it's kind of the write-up says, do you know a writer who could use a little help? Or maybe you yourself are already published and looking for more in-depth advice. Join seasoned authors Christie Stratos and myself. We'll be chatting about the process of being an author and getting your book out there. So bring your questions, and please feel free to add your expertise as well to the discussion, because I know we have a lot of great prolific authors that join us from time to time. And if by all means, if you guys have advice that you want to share with us in the chat, I certainly have a lot to learn yet. I wouldn't say I'm an expert by any stretch of imagination. So it's just going to be a general discussion about the writing business. And if you have questions, I'm sure Christy and I can answer a lot of them, because we've been down that road a few times. I'm working on my 12th book now.
Yeah, especially you have a lot of books out there.
Yeah, and and I'm discovering now, as Caroline's taken over my marketing, I'm discovering that I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So I don't enjoy it. I get up in the morning and try and do the marketing, and my head just starts spinning. I just say, the heck with it, and I start writing. So I never did myself proud with the marketing side, and Caroline's looking into it now, and she's really starting to shape things up. So
So great.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe we can have her chime in too. I'm sure she'll be watching next week too, so we can have her chime in with her expertise, because she does a lot on social media as well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of writers hate marketing, so that's like a common thing I hear. So yeah, that'd be really cool to have her in the chat.
Well, and that's the tough thing about being self-published, is you got to wear every hat. Whereas, you know, if you've got picked up by a publisher, then you wear one hat. All you have to do is write the story, and you take part in the editing process a little bit. You sometimes, depending on who the publisher is, you have no say in the covers or nothing. You can suggest what you like. If they don't like it, you're not getting it. Then, and the big publishers should hopefully look after the marketing. The smaller publishers, I think, once they get you out there, they might give you a send off, and then I think they start cutting their ties with you really quickly. But I don't know if we get some hybrid authors next week, that'd be awesome to hear from them and their journey as well, because I know it's not all roses. Even when you do get a smaller publisher, you're kind of looking after a lot of that stuff yourself. So
true. Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for joining us. And if we do have another break, we will do another one of these, because Chris and I enjoy it. And next year, starting the first Tuesday of every month next year, other than January, because we didn't think about it until January is full, is we're going to start doing certain themes, genre themes, and we're going to have different authors come on. We're going to invite them on, and they're going to do these live reads with us. Just kind of a once a month. It's kind of a fun thing to do, and you can hear authors talk about their books. So if you're an author and you want to take part in these live reads with us, please let us know. You can message myself or Christie, and we will slot you in whenever that genre slot comes open. So,
and it's a lot of fun. Don't be shy. It's we have a great time with it. As you can see, we just have fun. So yeah. And you really get into it. Once you start it, it's a great time.
And one of these times, we're going to get Christie in her period garb. So we're going to get her in a Victorian dress or something with the fancy hair and whatever those hats are. And
yeah, I did. Cool. I did get a shirt just for that purpose, like a Victorian shirt that I can put like a nice pin on and all kinds of stuff. And I do have maybe one or two things I could wear when we read one of yours again. So
there you go.
I'm gonna be like, but that's okay.
Well, we know you've got to get you some pointy ears.
Yes, that I don't have.
I do have pointy ears. They're not here. I never even thought about wearing them. I should have. I just thought about it right now. I've got pointy ears. I got them from Caroline, actually. So when I wore my knight's costume, she was going to wear pointy ears, and
that's cute.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was great. Thank you, Christie. That was a lot of fun. I certainly enjoy these.
Oh, I so enjoyed it too. I love reading your stories. I love listening to you read them, and I love participating in them both.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. And I made it a point to try and make Christie laugh today, but I didn't want, when she was reading, but I didn't want to throw her off too much to spoil her read. So
I can't. I love the costume. I love I can't say it enough. I love the costume.
This is the best I could get for when the guy was formally dressed, so I didn't want to wear a tie and all that underneath. So
yeah, no, of course, but that was good. That's good. It's perfect.
No. Okay, so I guess we've rambled on long enough. So we will see everybody next week. And if you have questions that you want to know anything about writing, or if you have some expertise that you'd love to share with us, we'd love to hear it, because like I say, I don't know everything about it. I hardly know anything about the publishing side of it, but I will answer the questions to the best of my ability. So until next week, until we meet again, take good care, everybody.
Have a great night.